So this afternoon, this is a Saturday as I'm shooting this, I'm going to start reading Gardens of the Moon by Erikson, the first book in the Malazan Book of the Fallen. And I want to document my thoughts after each reading session. So this is my first attempt at a vlog. I've never done one of these, so please give me any feedback that you have, whether this worked for you, things you can suggest for me to improve. I'd love to hear it, because I actually haven't seen that many vlogs of this type. And if you have any booktubers that you recommend that do this very well, let me know, because if this is something that I decide to keep doing, I would certainly like to improve. But what I'm going to do is simply shoot a short video after each time that I finish a section of the book. So when I do a reading session, I'll turn the camera on and talk about what I just read. I thought it might be a fun way to document myself reading through this great book at the beginning of this book series. So without further ado, I'm going to turn off the camera, and the next time you see me, I'll have started Malazan Book of the Fallen, Book 1, Gardens of the Moon by Erikson. Well, it's Saturday afternoon. I just read the first chapter, well, the prologue and the first chapter of Gardens of the Moon. It's a pretty dense read so far. I only managed about 40 pages in about an hour, which is a lot lower than I normally do, but I am going to take my time with this to try to not rush through it and understand as much as I can. I can see the notoriety, I guess, of this book, how it kind of throws you into the action, because it is a little, I wouldn't say it's confusing, but I can't say also that I totally understand what's going on. I think by the end of the first chapter, we found who's going to be at least a main character, maybe in this book, maybe this portion of the book. I'm not really sure, but I like it so far. I like the writing style. I think it's very clear, even though it's dense. So I'm going to probably read a little bit more tonight, and I'll have another update after that reading session. So I read about 50 pages, chapters 2 and 3. It's definitely a confusing read. My biggest source of confusion at this point is there's a war going on and battles going on, and it's really hard to keep track of not only what side people are on, but what the sides even are. There's an empress, and that's about all that's kind of been illuminated at this point, at least for me. So I'm not really sure why there's a war going on, what it's about, what the motivations of the people are doing, or even some of these people, which sides they're on. Chapter 3 had a surprising ending with a character getting killed off, but there have been some interesting characters. There's a character, Tattersail, that I like so far, and I think this Whiskey Jack character might be somebody interesting. But there's some good things in there, but I am a bit confused here at the start. So we'll see what the next reading session brings. So it's Sunday afternoon. I just read about 70 pages of Gardens of the Moon. It started out just as confusing, but it started to get quite a bit better, I think, as I'm starting to connect a little bit more with the characters. That helped. And then I finished part 1. When I started part 2, it moves to a different setting, a city named Darujistan, and it basically starts brand new with some new characters. And this section, at least one chapter in, is a lot easier to read than the first part, which jumped around quite a bit and was a bit confusing. I had to ask a question on the Discord just to find out what was going on, and thankfully Matt cleared up some things for me. But I like the second section quite a bit. I'm going to read a little bit more tonight. I'll probably finish part 2. I think there's just one long chapter left, and then probably even start part 3 tonight as well. But it's looking up. I'm enjoying it. I'm still a bit confused with a lot of things. Erikson tends to just drop things at you and then doesn't really explain it till later. Like there were these creatures that were explained that had been mentioned previous. I just forgot the name of them. These winged creatures that are kind of insectoid that humans kind of ride through the war. I don't know what they're called. I don't recall at the moment, but they were mentioned early in the book and then they were explained later. So I think there's just going to be a lot of that going on. So I think I'm just going to have to kind of roll with the punches and just know that I'm not going to understand things as we go along, and then hopefully they'll get explained to me. But I am enjoying it more, at least at this point, about 160 pages in. Just knocked back about 80 more pages. I'm really liking this thing now. The second part was really good. It's in Darujistan, and there's these rival kind of assassin guilds picking each other off. And the third part started, and it went back to some of the characters from the first part, Tattersail being the most prominent one. And I liked how there was I'm trying to be a little vague, not to be total spoilers, but there was a character that was, I guess, portrayed as a total villain, that you kind of see the side of that character that they're not really a villain. And it's just interesting to see within the Malazan Empire, which is the bulk of the characters that we've seen, how there's some kind of infighting, and you can kind of see both sides of it. But I've really enjoyed what I've read today. I'm in a much better, more positive feeling place about this book finishing day 2. So I'm almost halfway through, and we'll see what happens tomorrow. I probably won't get to read quite as much tomorrow because I'm back to work, but we'll see how it goes. Hey, it's Tuesday morning. Just a little update. I read about 90 pages last night, and I was really tired at the end, so I didn't shoot a video. But I'm in the like category for this book so far. I'm more than halfway. I have about 190 pages left. There's some things I like. There's some things that I'm kind of tolerating, and there's some things I don't like. So let me address those. The things I'm liking a lot of the characters. I like the mages. I like the assassins, which I fear they're going to be a little short-lived. I like the magic. I like that it's kind of a hard magic system, but it isn't overly explained, which, like Sanderson kind of does that a lot of times where he over-explains things. Let's see. I am tolerating the confusion aspect of the story. All I've learned so far in about 330 pages with Erikson is he tends to drop a proper name of something and then explain it later. And I'm trusting him because so many friends have read this series and rave about it. But I'm tolerating it. I'm not liking it. I think there's some elements of confusion that didn't necessarily have to be confusing in this book. And I know Erikson is famous for saying he doesn't hold his readers' hands, but frankly, I find that statement arrogant. I want to clarify that last statement I made on the vlog. I am in no way calling Steven Erikson arrogant. I've seen enough interviews with him and live streams and things like that he seems quite the opposite. He seems very humble, very easygoing. In fact, a lot more humble than you would expect for someone who's achieved so much. I find the statement arrogant, not the person. I wanted to be very clear about that point. But I'm trying to just kind of roll with it and just trust that things will be explained. So I'm tolerating the confusing aspects of the story because a lot of them have been resolved later in the text. So that's kind of a middle thing. My biggest concern with this book and this series in general is what my concern was at the very beginning, and that's the level of military fantasy in this. I'm not a fan of that subgenre. It's my least favorite subgenre of the genre. And I just have concerns that at some point in this series, I get in the middle of a 900-page book and it's just hundreds of pages of military campaigns and so forth that I just end up not continuing. So that's my biggest concern at this point. But overall, I am liking the book, and this is Tuesday morning, I'll probably finish it Thursday night. I don't think I'll get it done in the next 2 nights. So probably maybe 3 more of these check-ins, and I'll be having a final assessment for this book. So Tuesday night, I just finished book 5, which is called The Gadrobi Hills. Easily my favorite part of this book. A lot of the characters and storylines kind of converged in these hills outside of Darujistan. And I really like where the story went. And I'm at the point in the book where I'm starting to have some favorite characters. And that's been really great because this is known as a world building type of book series that doesn't necessarily focus on characters. So having some characters to latch onto, at least at this point in the narrative, has been great. So this was Tuesday night. I'm probably going to finish it 2 more nights. I think I have about 140 pages. So probably 2 more updates and then I'll be done. So I finished Gardens of the Moon last night. When I did my rating on Goodreads, I gave it a 3.5 out of 5. And that means I still enjoyed it. 3 is a like, 4 is a really like on that 5-point scale. And I rounded it up or rounded it down. No, I think I rounded it down on Goodreads. Anyway, I enjoyed a lot of it. I loved a lot of it. There are some great scenes in this book that are very memorable. A few surprises. I wasn't expecting the magic to be quite as intense and as prevalent in this book, and I love that part of it. There were a lot of characters. I actually didn't struggle with characters at all. The one thing that I really struggled with the most in this book was the proper names of factions and creatures and things like that. And bonehead that I am, I didn't realize there was a glossary at the end of the book. Had I known that, I think I probably would have saved myself a lot of grief in reading this book and the times where I was struggling understanding what was going on. Because one thing Erikson does, and I might have mentioned this earlier, I don't remember, this is over a span of 6 days, all of these videos. One of the things that he does is he drops a proper name and then explains it later. At first, it was a bit of consternation on my part, and then I understood what he did. But I still found it frustrating, and I honestly don't know why he tended to do that. So if you're a Malazan vet and you're actually watching this video, tell me why. I'm not really sure why, as an author, that's a good idea to just drop a name, and I'll explain it later, because it just causes confusion for the reader. And I don't know, I didn't like that aspect of it. But I will say, despite 3.5, people are giving me grief saying that's a low rating and I hated the book. I didn't hate the book. I really liked so much of it. I'm really excited to read Dead House Gates. I understand it's a different part of the world and has different characters, but I know a lot of the characters in this book, well, from what I've heard, will continue in the series to be important. Animander Rake is awesome. One of the more exciting fantasy characters I've encountered in quite some time. I liked some of the other characters quite a bit as well, but I enjoyed it mostly. So once again, with this blog post, let me know what you thought of all this, whether this is something that I should continue to do, whether this is something that you enjoyed or will continue to watch. And if you think that I should do this, if you have recommendations for me to improve, I'm all ears. I just want to put out a great product for all of you. But I enjoyed Gardens of the Moon. I look forward to reading Dead House Gates and the rest of the Malazan Book of the Fallen. Look for a live stream very soon. We'll have an announcement. Jordan, Alex, and Ian and I, and we haven't announced it yet, but we have a great Malazan vet that's going to help us understand a little bit more. Or maybe it help me. They'll be great and we'll understand it, but it'll help me understand what I didn't understand in Gardens of the Moon. If you like this video, please like and subscribe. Also, find me on Twitter and Goodreads. I'd love to interact with you there. As always, thank you for watching. Until next time, goodbye.